Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a bachelor's degree since tuition is one-third the cost of four-year schools. More at tncc.edu.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Nephrology. Ever heard of it? It's a medical term for the study of kidneys. So how much do you know about your kidneys? What do they do within the ecosystem of our bodies? What causes them to malfunction? And if they do, well, what do you do about it? Up next on Another View on Health, expert advice from nephrologist Dr. Thomas McCune and cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. And later in the show, we've got ways that you can help others who suffer with kidney disease. It's all coming up next on Another View, right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Before we get started with our conversation today, it's all about your kidneys. A couple of things going on in the community I thought you might be interested in. The I. Sherman Green Chorale Incorporated is holding its 50th anniversary choral music workshop choir concert under the direction of Dr. Marquis L.A. Garrett, who is clinician and director, and special guest, the North Carolina A&T State University Choir under the direction of Maestro Travis Alexander. And this is a free concert. It is open to everyone. It is happening on Saturday, September 24th at 7:15 p.m. at Kempsville Presbyterian Church. That's located at 805 Kempsville Road in Virginia Beach. So if you want to hear some gorgeous music, come on out and celebrate with the I. Sherman Green Chorale featuring the choir from North Carolina A&T State University. And then on Sunday, there is a very special event going on in Chesapeake, particularly if you live in the Georgetown section of Chesapeake, where Willie Cooper and his family have lived for over 50 years. Now, his daughter, Desiree Cooper, has been a guest on Another View, and she is an author, and she's written a new book called Nothing Special in honor of her dad and also his relationship with his great-grandchildren. And so you won't want to miss this opportunity to, one, get a signed copy of the book, but also to enjoy the block party that will be happening. It is at 2126 Rock Creek Drive in Chesapeake from 3 until 5 p.m. So come on out and celebrate with the Coopers. And then we want to invite you next Thursday to come join us live at Fort Monroe. We're going to be talking about Harriet Tubman and her time at Fort Monroe as a nurse as she worked with wounded Black soldiers during the Civil War. And this is in honor of a new documentary that is coming out on PBS in early October. So we're going to be live Thursday, September 29th at the Fort Monroe Visitor Center. And we need you to register. So just go to whro.org/events and sign up. We need everybody to arrive by 11 o'clock so we're all in place and ready to go live at noon. So if you've ever wondered what it looks like to put together a radio show, come on out, join us. I think you'll have a great time. So on today's Another View on Health, we're talking about kidney disease. Black people are at higher risk for kidney disease than any other race or ethnicity, especially since we tend to have many of the ailments that can lead to kidney failure, like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. Here to talk to us about this important part of our bodies is nephrologist Dr. Thomas McCune. Dr. McCune, how are you?
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And always our favorite cardiologist and co-host of Another View on Health, Dr. Keith Newby. How are you?
I am doing well. I appreciate you saying those nice things about me, Barbara. You are all right with me. I'm going to tell you, I always feel so good every time I'm on this show with you. Thank you.
You are very welcome. And you know what? I will tell you, though, excuse me, but Dr. McCune is actually here in studio with us. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh, man. Well, listen, I'm out here trying to make a difference in the community, so I'm going to ask for your forgiveness for today.
I know, absolutely. So, but this is a really, really important topic, and it actually, kidney disease, kidney failure really is something that happens in both of your professions, as a nephrologist and as a cardiologist. So I think this is going to be a great conversation. So, Dr. McCune, let me start with you. Let's start with the basics, okay? What are our kidneys? Why do we need them? And why is it important for us to talk about this?
Kidneys are the most important organ in the body. Isn't that right, Keith?
Here we go. Here we go. That's okay. Listen, that's okay. Everybody's entitled to opinion. That's the wonderful thing about this great land we live in.
Oh, gosh. Now we're going to have a fight between the kidneys and the heart. Okay.
It goes on all day long.
That's all right. Tom's a good friend. He's just picking. So.
The kidneys are responsible for cleaning the body. They're cleaning the poisons out of the body, as well as maintaining the water balance that we have. It's also responsible for maintaining the electrolyte balance of the body. If you've ever seen an EKG, you understand that there's electrical currents going through the body, particularly the heart, and the kidney keeps those chemicals in the correct balance so that everything's working fine. Mm-hmm. They also maintain bone homeostasis. They're very important for maintaining healthy bones. And for making sure you have enough red blood cells. So it's more than just filtering the system. It's actually interacting with all the other organs to maintain every homeostasis.
So what happens to cause them to malfunction or to not function as well as they could? Well,
the kidneys, at the center of the kidney is the glomerulus, which is like a colander, if you will. Okay. And if a colander breaks down, if the holes aren't big enough to let the water come out, the colander's no good. Right. Additionally, if the holes in the colander are too big, protein falls through, and that injury can propagate and continue to cause the kidneys to fail. Mm-hmm.
So why is it so prevalent in the Black community, especially?
You know, that's really an excellent question. And in the last 12 years, a great deal of research has gone into that. Not enough, mind you, but a great deal. And one of the things that they've discovered is that there is a genetic cause for the kidney failure that is prominent in the African American community, and it's due to a gene malfunction in the APOL1 pathway, and it's very common in African Americans in the Southeast United States and in the Caribbean, as well as Africans living in Western Africa, which is where the people taken as slaves were brought to the United States.
So this is actually genetic.
Absolutely.
It can cause kidney failure and kidney disease. I mean, that's huge, isn't it? I mean, people didn't know that before.
No, this was only described precisely in 2010 in an article that was published in the journal Science, which is one of the most important journals out there for medicine. And what they did, a friend of mine who's at Wake Forest went throughout the Southeast United States, drew blood on people, and did genetic studies, and was able to discover that there was a certain marker in the blood of patients who had, because if you go into a dialysis unit, you will find family members in the dialysis unit.
Wow. And all of them in there together having dialysis.
In there together. And they may all have different diagnoses as the cause of their kidney failure. And Barry Friedman, my friend at Wake, said, this doesn't make sense. How can one person in the family have a different disease than another member of the family who has kidney failure? There needs to be something in common with the three. And so he got a big NIH grant, went around the country drawing bloods on everybody on dialysis, and was able to identify the cause of this.
Wow. So before we start talking about treatments and so forth, Keith, as a cardiologist, then do you take into account the health of somebody's kidneys as you're looking at if they have heart disease and so forth?
Well, we almost have to. If you look at a lot of the precursors, and Dr. McCune, you can chime in on this part. I'm assuming that ApoL1 kind of pathway is, I mean, in other words, you could still have, I'm assuming there are other African Americans with kidney disease that don't have that, and it's not like everyone, but it's a big factor. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a fair statement, Keith, because we still have polycystic kidney disease. We still have the other ones, Alports and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we find is typically when I'm seeing patients, I run into a lot of the precursor folks, like with hypertension that's just not well controlled, diabetes, and I have people that, unfortunately, so because many of these early disease processes are asymptomatic, and Barbara, you and I have talked about this before, the unfortunate reality, especially in our population, in our communities, if you don't feel poor, you don't want to necessarily do anything about it, meaning you'll let those blood pressures stay ridiculously high, and you'll say, well, and I've had people with a pressure of 160 over 100, and they'll say, oh, that's good for me. And I'm looking at them and say, no, that's not good for anybody. Don't get that. Don't misinterpret that, because when you look at outcomes, people with bad blood pressure and poorly controlled diabetes have a higher incidence of heart disease, heart failure, coronary disease, higher incidence of stroke, heart failure, kidney disease, and just poor outcomes. So, a lot of these precursors you find, and there is, and Dr. McCune and I, we joke with each other a lot, but the bottom line is there's so much overlap between heart and kidneys. I mean, because, and these other chronic conditions, and these are what prevail in the African-American community. So we have to be diligent with making sure those things are controlled, because I would tell you, and Tom, chime in on this one. If you go into most dialysis centers around here and you look around the room, who prevails in there is going to be African Americans in this area. Right. And I can't speak to other parts of the country, but if you go to any dialysis center here, you're going to see predominant numbers of African Americans in there, and that's the part we're trying to fix, because we don't want you there. I want you out living your best life, and that's not sitting in the dialysis chair 3 days a week. Exactly.
And we'll talk about more in depth about dialysis in a minute. But how does somebody know, Dr. McCune, if they are having kidney trouble, whether it's a disease or whether it's, I mean, obviously if it's failure, I would assume you get like super sick. But how do you know if you have kidney disease? Yeah,
that's the problem. I mean, if someone walks in the emergency room with chest pain, they know to call Keith Newby. If someone comes to the emergency room or even to the office, you're not going to know they've got kidney dysfunction until you do a blood test. Your kidneys will continue to work and do their best until you're below 10% of normal kidney function. So you won't have any symptoms at all. You may have some swelling in your legs. You may have some blood in your urine, but usually not enough for you even to see. You may have some back pain, but that's in very few cases. So for the majority of the patients with kidney failure, they're totally asymptomatic until they have their kidneys are not clearing the poisons out, and those poisons build up and affect their taste buds, interfere with their ability to eat, things like that.
So if you go for a regular checkup every year, for example, is a kidney test a part of that checkup?
Yes, it should be. You should have what's called a basic metabolic panel, which should test the two chemicals that we look at, particularly for kidney function, which is the creatinine level and the BUN, or blood urea nitrogen. Those two things together will tell you if the kidney is doing the clearance that it needs to. And then, of course, with that, you'll have the electrolytes, the sodium, the potassium, the chloride, and the bicarbonate, which will tell you if the kidney is doing its proper function for keeping the electrolyte balance in order.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Do you know someone who is dealing with kidney disease or kidney failure, or who may be on dialysis, or what questions do you have about your kidney function? 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Dr. Newby, how much does healthcare disparities play in people getting A, tested, and B, being able to stay on top of whether or not they have this issue?
Well, to be honest with you, the disparities are always going to be prevalent and predominant, and not. It's like a multifaceted problem. It's not any one individual or system one system failure. It's like the whole system fails in a lot of situations. Communication, our ability to communicate effectively with patients' ability to get the information and the products or the testing that they need to understand when it should be done. I think when people come to a clinic visit, the first thing is always, introductions and kind of the small talk we do, but then you have to get into, why we're doing this stuff. And they have to understand what the issues, what lifestyle, what social determinants of health they may be undergoing that could be a factor, meaning if it's a food insecurity issue or housing insecurity, financial issues that would now allow them to afford the medicines that they need to take in order to be healthier. So it's a wide array of issues that ultimately lead to these poor outcomes, and that's partly what we're trying to do now. Dr. McCune and I talk a lot, and we have to, because this is part of that issue. We have to be able to communicate with each other to deliver the best care to that patient. And he and I have worked together 20 plus years now. We don't want to tell our age, but we have been together for a minute, I'll say that. But we work well together because the ultimate goal is for the patients to get better. And I think both he and I understand the level of importance, because he's been talking to me for a while about getting up here because he knows the importance of what he's bringing to the table today. So I think this really brings light and sheds light to where we need to be, to the ultimate improvement of our community.
Okay. So, Dr. McCune, does kidney disease only happen in older people? Can it be younger people?
It can be younger people. They have a very busy clinic at the Children's Hospital with kidney disease in children. So there are children on dialysis from diseases that occur in childhood. I'm
stunned. I mean, honestly, because normally you think about that being an adult issue, but so children can also fall prey.
Yes, children can as well.
And is that because of genetics, or is that because of other lifestyle changes, or what?
That's genetics in its purest form. If a child has a disease, particularly kidney disease, it is due to a genetic cause. There are factors that can allow older people to have kidney failure, such as high blood pressure and diabetes, or even an opportunistic infection can lead to the progression of kidney disease. But what we're now finding, but in the majority of those patients, there is a genetic predilection to it.
So is there something that you can do? First of all, can you be tested to find out if you have the gene that's going to cause kidney disease?
Yes, there are ways to get your genetic assay done. It's a whole exome. Basically what they do is they take your entire DNA and check your entire DNA for genetic diseases that can affect the kidney.
And then if you have this gene or whatever, what can you do about it?
Right now, the gene that I was talking to you about, the APOL1, we are starting to look at therapies because we've been able to identify a family in far-off India that genetically does not have the APOL1 gene anywhere in their system, yet these people don't get sick. That tells us that we can block this whole pathway down and keep people from potentially having kidney failure.
Wow. So if somebody's concerned or whatever, they need to come see a nephrologist, right?
Yes, there are plenty of us here in town.
Our phone lines are lit up. Let's see, which line are we going to, Lisa? Because we just lost the first one that I thought we were going to. Okay, let's talk to Robert in Chesapeake. Hi, Robert, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. My question is, doesn't diet play a role in whether someone's going to get diabetes, which many times leads to kidney disease? I know there are some genetic factors that may predispose us to getting diabetes and kidney disease, but the food that we eat, the high carbohydrate diet, high sugar, doesn't that have some effect on it?
Okay, thank you for the call, Robert. Go ahead.
Well, the high carbohydrate, the high sugar diet itself is not a problem. Weight gain is a problem. So obesity can cause the progression to diabetes because the fat cells absorb extra insulin, and so type 2 diabetes is common in that group. So, anything that leads to obesity, and you can have a high protein diet that can also lead to obesity. Basically, it's how many calories you're taking in and how many calories you're burning. And as long as they're equal, you're doing fine.
So if you think that you are or if they find that you're starting to have kidney disease. Okay, let's start first of all. What's the difference between kidney disease and kidney failure?
Okay, kidney disease is any loss of kidney function that is evident with blood tests. Kidney failure is when the kidneys are not clearing the poisons out of the system, or the electrolytes are not being able to stay into balance. And the only way you can correct that is with either hemodialysis or a treatment called peritoneal dialysis, in which an IV fluid is poured into the abdominal cavity. It sits there for several hours, drains out the poisons, and then another bag is poured in. And then the third option is kidney transplantation. So you have kidney failure if you need either hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, or a kidney transplant.
Okay. We had the call that we lost. She was driving down Route 13. So she wanted to know if how to prevent kidney stones. She said her husband has suffered with them in the past and is currently in the hospital with them. This is a caller by the name of Brenda.
Right. The kidneys are important in the formation of kidney stones. The most important thing you can do to prevent kidney stones is to drink enough water that your urine stays clear. That's vital for anyone who's had a kidney stones. There's two major forms of kidney stones, either due to calcium oxalate or due to uric acid. And with urine tests and blood tests, you can differentiate the two and find a therapy that's effective for which of the two type of kidney stone formation you have.
Dr. Newby, when you are talking with people about their health and all, do you focus on kidneys at all?
Yes, I have to, unfortunately. So this is one of those scenarios where I have to look at the entire picture. So, and you hate to get to that point where they do have kidney disease, because there can be a slow or a quick progression to the need for dialysis. So, when I see people from the first, I look at everything. I look at their physical status, lab work, and if I see any signs, of any kidney failure, or when I say kidney failure, if I even look at the urinalysis, I see protein spilling in their urine, I'm immediately keen on addressing that. If they have hypertension and their blood pressure is not well controlled, or they're diabetics, I always look at their hemoglobin A1C level, which is a marker of control of their diabetes. Now, even though I'm not a diabetologist, I'm not a nephrologist, but I always say we're doctors first and then specialists second. So, you got to look at that entire picture, because everything plays on one another. So, you're looking at that first, making sure we make the determination, is there an issue there? And even if there's not, we don't want it to become an issue. So if their pressures are poorly controlled, I'm immediately talking to them about saying, okay, we need to address this, because what I don't want to see is 5 years from now you're on a kidney machine. So we have to look at it from a more global perspective, and not just like, if they're in there for heart failure, or they're in there seeing me for chest pain, I have to look at it more globally. I can't just say, okay, I'm just going to deal with just the heart issue and that's it. I have to look at it for a more global perspective, as does Dr. McCune has to do the same thing.
Dr. McCune, Lisa, our producer, wanted to know, you said you have to drink water. Is there a certain amount of water people should drink on a daily basis? And do things like coffee, tea, juice, does that count?
When I advise people, I don't consider coffee, tea, juice, sodas to count. Okay. Water is really what you should be drinking, and you should be drinking enough. By itself. You should be drinking enough water that your urine is clear.
So that depends on the individual then, in terms of body size and so forth?
Body size and stuff, but basically you'll know if you're drinking enough water if your urine stays clear.
Okay. Let's see if we can get one more call in. Ben joins us from Hampton. Hi, Ben. You're on the air.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
The number one reason why people get kidney disease, and particularly in the African-American community, is because they eat the standard American diet. And I'd like the doctors to address the issue of going with a vegan, whole foods, plant-based diet. And the literature around this indicates great efficacy. Probably 90% of the kidney patients would never even have to visit the office if they ate a vegan diet.
Okay, let's have the doctors respond. Thanks so much, Ben. I mean, is it all about the diet, Dr. McCune?
I wish it were so. We really can't blame the patients for their disease. As I said early on, the majority of patients with kidney disease probably inherited a trait from their parents that has put them at greater risk for having kidney disease. I would agree that a plant-based diet is best for everyone. I would agree that a keto diet is is great, and intermittent fasting is very important to do. But we really can't blame the patients for their disease. There's a very strong genetic component to this.
And Keith, you talk a lot about just maintaining a good, healthy diet anyway for all of the diseases.
Yeah, well, I think what happens a lot of times is, we do tend to, unfortunately, look at this as a blame game. And like Dr. McCune just said, you can only hold people accountable to what they can control. If they're plant-based diets, if you have let's say like you live in a food desert and you have no transportation, where your ability to obtain fresh fruits and vegetables, things like that, may be not as prevalent as somebody else who may be living in has no transportation issues. They're not constrained by financial concerns. So you have to kind of take into context what they can and cannot really do. I mean, so that's the thing I think people need to take into consideration. Is it's not always any individual's fault, but life circumstances sometimes that just don't allow you to do that which may be in your best interest. But that's where our job is, to try to identify those individuals and give them the help they need.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about kidney health with nephrologist Dr. Thomas McCune and Another View on Health co-host, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. So, Dr. McCune, if this thing is genetic, now that we discovered that there is a genetic marker that could possibly cause kidney disease, I mean, should everybody rush out and get genetic testing? And beyond that, what else can we do to prevent kidney disease?
Well, I think understanding your genetics is important. The first thing I would recommend doing is doing a good family history and look through your family to what medical problems your family has. I find a family history is something you end up taking several times throughout the course of multiple visits, because every time you ask a question, the individual goes back to the family and people start to come out and say, well, yeah, I do have that problem. And so the family history is something that grows over time. And that's also, I think, something that family get-togethers, family reunions should be something that's discussed at a family reunion openly, so everyone kind of understands what's out there for a potential. Whether they should get genetic testing, I think it's important as part of the evaluation for specific diseases. And what is the best way to avoid this? First off is good blood pressure control, good blood sugar control, and not just control, but actually there's some new medications out there that we're using that are very good at slowing the progression of not just kidney disease, but heart disease as well, along with controlling high blood pressure and controlling blood sugars.
So if you discover that you have kidney disease, that doesn't mean that you're automatically going to dialysis.
Not at all. Not at all.
Oh, okay.
We work very hard to keep people. Our goal is to keep people off dialysis.
And so what do the medications do?
The medications can lower the blood pressure in certain ways within the kidney and within the heart that can relax the heart so the heart's not squeezing as hard. And that the kidney is not having to work under a great deal of pressure.
Okay. Let's talk to Tracy in Norfolk. Hi, Tracy. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
My question is, I worked in the dialysis field as a dialysis technician for 14 years. And usually when you go on dialysis, you're in the end stages of renal failure, which is, stage 4 kidney failure. Now, I have had a urine decrease, not by a great amount, but it's, you have greater than 60 and one's greater than 53%. Now, when I talked to my primary care physician, he said to me, we usually don't refer you out to a nephrologist until you are in stage 4. And I kind of really don't accept that, because we want to prevent people from going into kidney failure. So should I already have a nephrologist, and what do I do to keep myself from getting there?
Got you. Okay. We'll let Dr. McCune and Dr. Newby respond. Go ahead, Dr. McCune.
Okay, the first thing is if you have protein in your urine, if you have a urinalysis and it suggests that you have protein in your urine, you definitely should be seen by a nephrologist so they can make sure that you do not have a problem with that glomerulus, that filter unit, that colander of the kidney. That's the first thing I would do. Additionally, if you start to have a creatinine that starts to go up, getting evaluated by a nephrologist is ideal. That's the best way to go. Now, the stages that you talked about, I'm not a big fan of the stages because the formula that we use to measure kidney function suggests that as people get older, they start to lose kidney function, and pretty much everybody at the age of 65 will become in stage 3.
What?
Yeah, it's the way the formulas work. It's the way
Go
the
back
formulas
and say
work.
that again.
The formula that we use takes age into consideration a great deal to suggest the loss of kidney function.
So
And
just as a natural progression, not that you've done anything or
like
you don't have your blood pressure under control or anything, just a natural progression, your kidney
just like
function.
our hair turns gray and we get wrinkles.
Wow.
We do lose some kidney function as we get older. We're not fighting the same fights we were fighting when we were in the 40s.
When you said 65, my heart stopped. So I need you, Keith.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, if you look at just think about as we get older and our joints start to think about when you wake up in the morning, how you feel when you're getting out of bed. Things start hurting that didn't hurt before. I look at our bodies all kind of decline to some degree, and they degenerate to some degree as we start to get older. The kidneys are just like anything else. Our brains are not quite as attuned as they were when we were 20. Mm-hmm. Our joints start to wear down a little bit. So, I mean, I wouldn't look at it as like a kiss of death because you get the stage 3 kidney disease. I think what that just means is you have to be more diligent with your health, and which we should do anyway as we're getting a little older. We have things that sometimes can go wrong, but that's where you have to be. That diligence has to be taken into account. Are your blood pressures where they should be? There are certain levels of blood pressure that are deemed appropriate for our age, and we need to make sure we're there. If we're diabetic or pre-diabetic, we need to make sure we're having those evaluated and addressed if appropriate. That's where that going to see your doctor is key. The biggest thing I run into is when you're trying to, you're arguing with patients. I got folks that would take these over-the-counter kind of nutrient supplements, and they'll just say, I don't want to take this pill because all I want to do is take this, they call natural stuff. Mm-hmm. And I always look at them, I say, well, you have them with you? And they'll show me some bottle, and I'll open it up and look at it. I said, I've never seen anything like this growing on a tree. I said, and I'm trying to tell them, I said, somebody made that which is in that bottle. So the question becomes is there factual data supporting the use of this substance? Mm-hmm. At least in our stuff, we have to do randomized clinical trials to prove that things work. Yeah. But a lot of the stuff that you give account, and I'm not saying don't do it, but it should be part of an entire plan, not a substitute for what you have. Because if your pressures are 160 and higher, and your A1C levels are where they're supposed to be less than 7 and they're 12. And you're taking some over-the-counter supplements, it's not to say that you shouldn't do that, but that's not going to make that blood sugar necessarily go down. It's not going to make that A1C necessarily get better. Mm-hmm. So it has to be part of an entire plan, an entire program to make sure you're at your best health.
Okay. So, Dr. McCune, if you happen to have dialysis, talk to us about what is that process and what does that look like? What does that feel like?
There's two forms of dialysis. There's hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. The hemodialysis requires either a large catheter that goes into the veins in the upper neck, blood filters through a machine, it gets cleaned, it gets put back in, or we create a big vein in the arm so that we can get a lot of blood flow through that and do the same thing through that same machine. This can be done in a center or it can be done at home. And
is that the one where you go multiple times a week?
Right.
It has to be done multiple
times a week. The other one is called peritoneal dialysis, and a tube about as big as a pencil is put into the abdominal cavity. It sits there, and then overnight fluids flow in. They sit for a while, they flow back out, and with that they pull the poisons out. At the end, in the morning you wake up, you cap that tube, stick it into the top of your underpants, and go about your business until the next day and you do it again. But the third option, which really is the best option, really is kidney transplantation. That's the option that will allow you to have a more normal life and a much longer life.
Let's see. Richard joins us from Newport News. Hi, Richard. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. Always enjoy the program.
Thank you.
I missed the first part, but I just want to emphasize, and I know the doctor is talking about genetics and food deserts, but in the end, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but America, we're the most overweight and obese people on the planet. And I've read this in multiple magazines, multiple sources, and it's a huge problem. And a lot of this, I don't know about kidney disease, but, we do this to ourselves. I'd like to hear the doctor's comment.
Okay, we'll let the doctors comment. Thanks so much for the call, Richard. Keith, this is back to what you were saying before, and Dr. McCune, too, about not blaming the patient, but...
Yeah, well, listen, if anything, you blame the system. If you look at what people's food choices are, I can go to a fast food joint and get a meal for $1. I go to a grocery store, it's going to take me, $15 to get an equally equivalent healthy meal. So there are some cost differential problems that, again, put people in a bad way. Look at how many commercials you see promoting fast food restaurants. It's unfortunate. So, we're a capitalist society. So, money dictates all. And if you look at the amount of money spent, I did a paper, I got to throw in my public health work, did a paper on obesity. And one of the things I didn't realize, you look at the amount of money spent on commercials for fast food restaurants, it was like over $1 billion. But the amount of money they spent on healthy eating was like less than $1 million or close to $1 million. So if you look at we're destined for failure coming out the gate, because of lack of education, lack of resources. It's a multifaceted problem. It's not any one thing. And I agree with the caller. We are the most obese nation in the country, no question about that. But it's not always. It's like it's multiple layers on why that is the case. And in order to combat that, we have to start somewhere, and it really needs to start from the top down and say, how do we change this narrative? Educate people more, get them more access to healthy meals, and not make it where you get a whole bunch of stuff for $1 that's not healthy for you, and it costs an arm and a leg to get something that is healthy. We have to change that narrative.
What do you think, Dr. McCune?
No, I agree with Keith 100% on that. This is it's a multifaceted problem that does lead to worsened hypertension, worsened heart disease, worsened diabetes. And it's something that we, as a society, we need to tackle some way. And the best way to do it is with education, to find healthier solutions to, and give people opportunities to make those healthy solutions.
The one common theme through every show that we've had, Keith and Dr. McCune, I think you'll agree with this too, this whole idea of healthy eating and maintaining your weight in a healthy way seems to affect almost every medical issue that you could have. Is that a fair statement?
I believe it is. I believe, living a healthy lifestyle with good diet, exercise, water, limited alcohol intake, all of those things.
So go ahead, Keith.
Oh, I was going to say this even access to places to exercise, because if listen, we got this gun violence problem here. People are scared to come out the house and scared to get shot somewhere. So, and I tell people all the time, you don't necessarily have to go to a gym to be healthy. Get out and walk. And there's data out there that says a structured walking program could be just as effective as getting on a treadmill or elliptical machine, for your overall health. But you got to be able to do it. You have to have areas where you can do it. And you don't need to fear for your life when you're leaving your house. So we have to have ways that are set and prepared for people to allow them to do it. So I love seeing developments where they have walking paths and bike paths, where they're encouraging that type of activity. So that's really what it takes. We've become a technology society, which means we're getting lazier by the minute. And until that changes, we have to really go back old school. Yeah, and that's what I think it's going to take.
And I think the pandemic didn't help because we were locked in for so long. So, Dr. McCune, if you have to get a transplant, what is it? You do dialysis first, and then if things continue to deteriorate, you have to get a transplant? Kind of what's that progression and what happens?
Ideally, the progression is managing somebody to slow the progression of the kidney disease as long as you possibly can. And then as you start to approach the point at which dialysis is going to become inevitable, we start to talk about the possibility of transplantation. And we can do a preemptive referral to the transplant program, evaluate somebody before they even start dialysis, identify a family member who can donate, or even list them for a deceased donor kidney transplant, and ideally transplant them before they ever go on dialysis.
Before they even get there. And so you were talking about families being in dialysis together. I mean, the genetic match for a transplant, or can anybody give you a kidney?
Pretty much anyone can give you a kidney. We at Norfolk General participate in some national sharing algorithms such that if someone needs a kidney and they have a loved one but they don't have a match because of blood type or because of blood proteins that are mismatched, we can list them on that national registry. And we have transplanted multiple people through this national registry, in which we share kidneys up and down the East Coast across the United States all at the same time. So it's an amazing way to do living transplantation that offers people who don't have a potential donor because of cross-match issues, blood type issues, to get one. So
what's that whole process like? I mean, if you're a donor, how long are you in the hospital versus the person that gets it, and kind of how does that work?
Well, there's kind of a race to see who you can get out of the hospital first, to be honest with you. Being in the hospital is not ideal. So if you can be in the hospital for 4 days after a living donor transplant, that's ideal. That's our goal, is you're out at 4 days. The donors, we're trying to get out after 2 days or even after 1 day.
Wow.
Because you're safer in your own bed than you are in a hospital bed.
So why do we have 2 kidneys if one will do? If you're donating a kidney, I'm assuming that means that your other kidney can take care of everything.
Absolutely. You can take out a kidney, and the remaining kidney hypertrophy will actually start to increase its functionality and can improve.
So it doesn't necessarily grow.
It doesn't grow.
But it can take on more.
Right. It recruits extra parts that is not necessarily using.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How painful is it?
We can get people out of the hospital after a living kidney donor surgery without narcotics.
Without narcotics?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
So, Dr. Newby, what else do you want to know about kidneys?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask this. Well, I'm gonna ask this question because I know people do ask some of these things. So I'm gonna bring them up to Tom to comment on. We talked about that donating the kidney, and that the other kidney will hypertrophy to some degree to accommodate. Is there any data? Because I've had people ask me this before, and I say, ask the kidney doctor. Is whether or not when that kidney starts to overwork somewhat to accommodate, is there any room that over time that kidney will start to fail as a result of this extra work on that kidney?
Good question.
That's a good question. That's the high. Yeah. We have not found that. When we started doing living donor kidney transplants in the 50s, they did a great deal of research on veterans from World War II who had to have a single kidney removed, and we found that those people did not have a shortened lifespan and lived healthy lives, and it was because of that they were able to do the first living kidney donor surgery. Since that time, we have not necessarily seen people long-term lose kidney function. There are the unfortunate people who will develop. It's very rare, and it has to do with the genetics. We're starting to, if a immediate family member is assessed for a donation, we check their genetics to make sure they don't have any genetic markers, because we can find in our donor population the same disease that the potential recipient has, and that person no longer becomes a donor.
No, that's right. They can't donate from there. You mentioned in that when they found this genetic marker that it was primarily African Americans in the Southeast and in Africa,
and the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean. But what about the African Americans in the Northeast? I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand why this particular part of the country.
This is where the research was done.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you can extrapolate that it may happen across the board.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we've got about 3 minutes left, gentlemen. I'm going to ask you first, Dr. McCune, what do you want to tell people as they think about their kidney health?
Maintain good hydration. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Make sure it's water and not you're substituting it with colas or coffees or teas. Maintain good blood pressure control. Ask your doctors if the drugs that you're taking for your blood pressure are the best drugs that you can take to protect not just your kidneys, but your heart as well. And ask your family members about their medical problems too, so you have an understanding of what diseases are prevalent within your family.
Yeah, that family history is really, really critical, isn't it, in terms of healthy living?
Absolutely.
Okay, that is Dr. Thomas McCune. He is a nephrologist here in the Norfolk area. You have offices all across the Hampton Roads area.
Yes, we do.
And so forth. And real quickly, Norfolk General just had a anniversary in terms of kidney transplants.
Yes,
is that correct?
We're celebrating our 50th anniversary of a kidney transplant program. We were one of the first kidney transplant programs in the country.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Newby, you got the last minute and a half.
Oh, well, I think, Dr. McCune was really right on point for all those things. I have nothing additional to add to that, but I would like to ask one quick question. Dr. McCune, if you have that gene, that pathway to APOL1, standard medications that we would use that are trying to protect kidneys and, like I said, they're diabetic, I'm assuming we still use them, but do they have any impact if you have this other genetic marker?
Yeah. And you got 30 seconds.
Okay, to answer quickly, the medicines that we use, the ideal medications that you and I discuss all the time are the ideal medications to use in this. What we think is there may be a second hit, maybe a viral syndrome that causes this gene to become activated. And that's why not everyone who has the gene is going to have the kidney problems going forward.
So we'll continue to follow this, and as you learn more information, let us know so we can have you back. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Newby, as always, and we'll be right back. Just sit tight.
Hi, this is Essie Patha-Murkerson from Law and Order. You are listening to Another View.
And welcome back. If you would like to help raise funds or bring awareness to the fight against kidney disease, our next guest will tell you about an exciting upcoming event. Please welcome to Another View, Ms. Donna Speller-Turner. She is chair of the 2022 Virginia National Kidney Foundation Walk. Hi, Donna. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. So tell us about the Kidney Walk. When is it and what's involved?
Well, after 2 years of virtual walks, we are together again. And we are going to be hosting the only Virginia Kidney Walk on Sunday, October 16th, at Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach.
And who do you expect to come out? How many people normally come out to help you walk? And what is the funds that are raised? What does that do?
Well, we are expecting anywhere from 750 to 1,000 walkers. The Hampton Roads Kidney Walk is one of the most popular walks in the Southeast, and we expect a pretty large crowd. There's no fee to participate, and that's one of the reasons that people come out either as individual walkers or as team walkers. So it's family friendly. You know, Barbara, in Hampton Roads, family friendly is always a good thing.
Yes.
And so coming out as a team, coming out as a family, or coming out as an individual makes it all work.
And so what people, how does the walk actually work? So they come out and walk, and are people pledging money for the amount of or the length of time they walk, or or how far they walk?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. Even if you come out and just volunteer, you are considered someone who is part of the walk. Many teams gather together from their companies, for example, and form a team and solicit their neighbors and family and friends to make donations. You don't have to walk far in order to raise a lot of money. 3 years ago, I probably walked about 500 yards and raised about $900.
Oh, wow.
Because people donated in honor of a family member, or they donated because they believe in the support and awareness that the National Kidney Foundation provides.
And so this starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it is on Sunday, October the 16th from 10 until 4. What else is going on besides walking?
Oh, my goodness. We are having a full day of events. We have our title or presenting sponsor, Natera. They will be out. We have activities for kids. We hope to have a special appearance by Sydney the Kidney. We have a absolutely wonderful jazz band called Raw Jazz. They will be performing in the afternoon. We have raffles that would be appropriate for adults, and we may even have a couple of additional special guests to show up. But it is a full day from 10 a.m. until about 4 or 4:30 p.m. We start the walk at 11 a.m., and everyone should be finished by about 1:30.
Awesome.
And the events and activities will be going on all throughout. We even have a couple of food trucks so that people can sample some really good festival-type food.
Oh, that sounds really good. So, Donna, why are you involved?
I really believe in this. I volunteered to serve on the board of advisors of the Virginia version of the National Kidney Foundation, and they are located in Richmond. And so for the last 3 years, I've been making the drive up to Richmond for the board meetings and supporting it. I found out that I have the incidence of kidney disease and chronic kidney disease in my family, particularly on my mother's side from South Carolina. And when I found that out, I said, I need to step up and do what I can do. So you know me, Barbara.
Yes.
I am a doer.
So tell people where they go to register for this. You got about a minute left.
All right. www.kidneywalk.org/Hampton Roads. Of course, Hampton Roads. Again, www.kidneywalk.org/Hampton Road.
And it's fantastic. And I will tell you that Dr. McCune asked me for the information that I'm passing on to him now, and he will post this in his office so that maybe you can get some more walkers out there. How about that?
I will get some posters to Dr. McCune. Believe you me.
Thank you so much, Donna. That's Donna Speller-Turner. She is the 2022 chair of the Kidney Walk here in Virginia. You know, we love sharing ways to stay healthy on Another View, and I hope that you will help others by sharing our show. Go to anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. And while you're there, please do me a favor and sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Next week on Another View, we're broadcasting live from Fort Monroe. It's an Another View history lesson on Harriet Tubman and the time she spent at this historic landmark. So if you want to register, please go to whro.org/events and sign up. Hope to see you there. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Thanks so much for listening, and let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice, whether starting your bachelor's degree or advancing your career. More at tncc.edu.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.